I'm Erin Lawler Patterson, the goodness chick. I'm an addictions counselor, motivational speaker, author, and parent coach. Join me on the journey of navigating the joys and pitfalls of life, addressing parenting, giving back, mental health, addiction, and relationships. If it takes a village, then join me as one of those villagers. Villagers wanted.
So in total, I'll be in Cyprus about a month and a half. We're about a month in. Crazy to think that in a few weeks we actually head towards the Middle East and our time in Cyprus is finished. I have had the privilege of being able to volunteer at the Samaritan's Charity in Paphos. There's a number of them throughout Cyprus, and the overall goal is through their thrift shops. All the money that's raised goes to pay for essentially the phone bills for people that are there to take calls from people who are either in crisis, need somebody to talk to. And it's just a beautiful thing because every day these people are giving of themselves or volunteering. The entire organization is not only nonprofit, but just run by volunteers. And I think about we're kind of in a time, sometimes it's very easy to kind of get sucked into all the negatives of the world, whether that be in our communities, whether that be within our own nation, globally, whatever, very, very easy. But allowing yourself to take a step back and look within your own community, look within your own state, look within your own country. There are so many people that are so selfless, that are so positive, and essentially just want to make a difference in the world and help other human beings with whatever organization that's in. There are so many nonprofits out there. There's so many different organizations that are focused on helping others. And what these few weeks have really done for me is kind of recharge my batteries big time, encountering and chatting with people who are putting in, whatever number of hours per week, serving others, encouraging others, loving on others, and allowing ourselves and reminding ourselves that there's so many good people out there. There's so many really positive, strong, wonderful things that are happening in the world. There are negatives, plenty of negatives, but when we focus on the positives, and the reality is, what are we doing in our own way to change the world? What are we doing to have an impact on somebody's heart? Because all of us have that ability, every single one of us, but it's a conscious choice that we have to make. Because there's times that whether we are in a not good situation or emotionally we're struggling, or somebody that we love is struggling, life happens. And when we're able to love and care for people humanely and just look at them and love on them with kindness, the world becomes a better place. It really, 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 really does, because there's truly so much hurt out there. And kind of going on the heels of that, want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Fire Mountain Residential Treatment Center, which is located in Colorado, really a haven for so many of our kids who are hurting. It provides intensive support, treatment, and care that's so, so needed for these aching hearts, connecting them with the appropriate treatment when it comes to addiction and mental health, changing lives. I'm super proud to be sponsored by them. On this 40-acre plot of land, just spectacular, serving kids, providing the appropriate and necessary skills in treatment to instill within them the necessary coping skills for long-term success in life, long-term recovery. And what a beautiful thing that is. I really encourage you to hop on their site. They have info on the residential program as well as their summer outdoor empowerment camps, which are just phenomenal. Powerful ways to strengthen your kids' resiliency and self-esteem. firemountainprograms.com. All right, so today's episode, I'm very, very pumped to be part of, actually volunteering with, the time that we are in Cyprus, with the Cyprus Samaritan Charity. And I'm working at the charity shop, and I have with me today, I'm very excited you took the time, John, to be here. John Bingham, who is actually the secretary for this program, along with as being a listener and a mentor. So John, I want to say, first of all, thank you and welcome today. Secondly, if you could kind of explain a little bit about what Cyprus Samaritan is, the program itself,
Sure.
and go from there.
Samaritans is based on the UK charity. Samaritans UK started 1952, which was a vicar, a preacher in London, had to actually bury a young girl, 14 years old, who had just started her periods, but she didn't understand. She thought she was cursed, there was something wrong, so she took her own life. And that developed into a charity that expanded into basically listening to people who had emotional pain, who had difficulties, who wanted to talk about things that they couldn't talk to anybody else about. So that developed into, the UK has something like 200 branches, 18,000 volunteers, funded by donations, fundraising and so on. So that developed here back 20 years ago. So we started here in 1998. A group of about 6 or 7 volunteers started in a very small way to do the same things, to listen to people in emotional pain, to listen to people in despair, to be able to offer a service that guarantees certain things. Anonymity, so you don't have to use even your real name. You speak to us in complete confidence, confidentiality, so that you know that whatever you say will not go any further than what you want to discuss. We're non-judgmental, so it doesn't matter what you've done, what you want to talk about. You won't be judged or criticised. And we actually, we talk to the abused and the abuser in exactly the same way.
Okay. That's a lot that you guys offer.
Yes.
I mean, really as a program, and there are, which I wasn't aware of, there's so many of these that are all throughout the UK, which is dynamic. And how long have you been involved?
I was in the UK, trained as a Samaritan for maybe 12 months, then came over here. I've been doing this for 16 years here. The UK is slightly different. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Here, we haven't got enough volunteers yet. We have 53 volunteers currently. So we operate between 4 in the afternoon and midnight. Okay. 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Wow. What was it that led you to become involved with this program?
Well, 20 years ago, tragedy I share with you, I think, from your first podcast, my son took his own life. And I didn't understand at all where that came from or how it happened, or what causes people to be in that situation, and how somebody so close to you can do something like that, as far as we knew then, completely out of the blue. So after a couple of years, because you never rush into something during that grieving period, after a couple of years, I wanted to, one, find out more about what causes people to be in that situation, and also if I could help in terms of trying to make sure that that didn't happen to anybody else, which is a big aim, but that was the motivation, and that I thought that would be a good idea, so I got involved. Totally different to anything else I'd ever done in my previous life, and so it's been an interesting journey, and it sustains in terms of my motivation to keep going, and to be able to alleviate people in that extreme emotional distress.
And I want to say thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry for your loss. With a friend of mine who I just shared with you before we went on taping, who lost her son not too long ago to addiction.
Yep.
What I shared with her is, and I believe this with all my heart, I don't know why things happen in life, but I feel those of us that are in that kind of, I hate to use it, with gold card member club of loss, and have been through things, usually have the most passion, and have the ability to, I think, see and hear things in a different way. It's not a club I don't think anyone really wants to be a part of.
Sure.
But I would say, you know, your passion, you said 18 years you've been doing this? Or?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. And kind of being somebody who's met you, learning about what this program is, how many hearts you've probably changed in that time.
Well, you never know.
You never know, but you have.
Well,
wouldn't you?
You've been here. The organisation is here for people. We take maybe now over 3,000 calls a year, which is for a small community. That's quite a lot. Interestingly, when we started, it was just expats, people that speak English. The Cypriot community had no concept of what we do, and that's still something that we have to overcome. But now I would say 50% of all our callers are from the Cypriot community. So that's
50%.
Yeah, that's a real win for us.
Wow.
In terms of spreading the understanding of what we are and what we do. Suicide is still something that is stigmatized in many parts of the world. There is a religious connotation that is fairly critical of people that take their own lives. What God gives, God should only take away, that sort of feeling. So when you suffer death by suicide, there's two types of grief. There's the obvious one, and then there is having to explain to people the way that life was lost. And that can be interpreted in a number of ways. And people will say to you, how could he possibly do that to you? Isn't that a very thoughtless act? Isn't that very selfish?
Things not to say to somebody.
Things not to say to somebody in that situation. And here as well, and not just here, I think going back in the UK, if we go back to the 50s, you couldn't be buried in consecrated ground if you'd taken your own life. And it was the same here. I think it's slightly changing as everything is. But there is still that stigma in the community that somebody has let you down, that there is a weakness in your family that has caused something like this to happen, which is a total misunderstanding. But it's still there.
Do you think it's lessened in the past few years? We'll say here, particularly in Cyprus or in England, it's
very difficult to say. I think there is a growing awareness of mental illness and the issues people face, particularly with depression. But no, I don't think. I think there's still a lot to do in making people aware of the circumstances in which people find themselves. Depression is a very, very difficult thing to come to terms with. If you haven't been depressed, then there's no understanding that you don't have the strength or the ability to respond to the normal things that people are telling you. And that sort of feeling that, oh, come along, pull yourself together, you just need to, concentrate on the positive. That doesn't work because you don't have the physical ability or the mental capacity to do that because of what the disease is doing to you. So yes, that level of understanding is very important. Suicide is the biggest killer of people between the ages of 18 and 35. And that's tragic when you think of the pressures that are around to cause young people, particularly men, to take that sort of drastic action.
It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, yes, indeed.
But I think what adds to that is when I think we're beginning to educate more and make the topic of mental illness on all facets something that's more chatted about. I know in particular within the UK, every day I'm seeing different clips on Facebook and different forms of social media where it's like, Prince William, Prince Harry talking, dialoguing. I think that in the UK has been very much on the forefront, as well as within the United States, having different public figures. I think we need to be more comfortable about it because when we're not, those that are hurting aren't going to come forward. And those who love somebody who's hurting, it's like we're putting people in a box.
Yes, absolutely.
And I feel like what Cyprus Samaritans is doing is dynamic. If you were to explain what a listener is, and how that connects to the community, that would be wonderful.
As I've already said, We operate this centre 7 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
365 days a year, from 4 till midnight. We have people like me who will answer the phone to whoever wants to call us. We have 3 ways of helping people, either by telephone, by email, which is growing because people, particularly younger people, like to use that medium. And some people find it easier to write than to talk. And we also have face-to-face, where people can come in and see us and talk person to person, if that's the way that they choose to do it. When somebody rings us, the first thing we have to do is we have to establish that they've reached a safe place. So in the words that we use, the voice tones that we use, the approach that we take, we have probably, 30 seconds to a minute for them to say, yes, okay, I can trust where I am now. And we create an atmosphere which allows people to express very dark and difficult thoughts sometimes, things that they haven't been able to share with anybody else. Because when you have these sorts of despairing thoughts, who are you going to talk to? You're going to talk to your friends, well, maybe, but maybe you don't want to burden them. Maybe you don't want them to know things that are very personal, very difficult for you. Your family, well, yes, in proper circumstances. But again, there's that feeling that I don't want to let them down, that I've done something that I'm ashamed of, and that I'm in circumstances which is just too difficult and painful for me to explain to somebody that's so close to me. So the strength that we have is that we are just a voice at the end of the telephone, and you can tell us anything that you want to in your own way, in your own terms. We encourage you to do that. As I say, in a safe space where you know you're not going to be judged, and you know that we'll give you all the time and space that you need. And for that time that you're talking to us, you're commanding our attention, and maybe you don't have those opportunities in your day-to-day life. But people aren't listening to you like we would listen. So that's basically what we do.
I'm in awe of what you guys do. I really am. And you're based here.
Yep.
There's Paphos, and there's also this.
We have a centre in Paphos. We have a centre in Limassol, which is pretty much the same as this setup. We have 3 shops that raise the funds. It costs us €50,000 a year to run the service. A couple of years ago, we introduced free phone. So you ring us and it doesn't cost you anything. And you can be on the phone for as long as you like. And there's no limitations. So that's a big benefit.
What's the population that within this town, Paphos, Limassol? I mean, you're not dealing with millions and millions of people. So what I'm saying, that the calls you're getting in compared to, that says something, that how many people are hurting and want somebody to talk to.
Yes, this is a small population. Paphos is a big village, really. It's about 80,000, but it bumps up 2-3 times in the summer with the visitors. But it is quite a tight community, so everybody knows everybody. That's another benefit of what we are, because you can talk to us in complete confidence, and it won't be gossiped about, it won't leak out into the rest of that community. There's a big challenge for Cyprus because the population is just short of 1 million. Now, I would guess between 1/4 and 1/3 are people that are non-Cypriot. People like me, people that have come through the EU for work and so on. So that's a big challenge for the resident community. And of course, in the background, you have the constant issue of it being a divided island. So there is a sort of a national self-esteem issue in terms of this place has been invaded, I think the only time they were truly independent and managing themselves about 12 years from 62 to 74. Other than that, they've been invaded and dominated by all sorts of different cultures. So there's a real challenge for this community.
And where
mental health resources kind of play a big role in that, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I guess the other strength that we have is that we're a non-interventionist organisation. So we don't do anything else but listen. And our expertise is the fact that we have absolutely no expertise in anything to do with mental health other than the ability to listen to people in distress. And if we feel that they need something more than we can provide, then we would say, here's some information that might be useful to you, and we pass you on to professional, because we do not claim to be professionals in mental health. What we do is we just encourage people to release their feelings. And amazingly, that's extremely beneficial, because up until the time they talk to us, they probably haven't been able to do that. And if you're thinking suicidal thoughts, if you're thinking that the only way I can solve my problems is to end my life, that's very, very heavy, and it takes a lot of responsibility. And there's very few people you can talk to about that. And you can do that here with us by picking up the phone.
But you're more than a listener, because you guys have gone through training.
Oh,
it's not right. I mean, you're not just right off the street. You've gone through intensive training. That's, I mean, just kind of explain to somebody that's listening. You know, that you've gone through training, but I mean, it takes a special heart to do what you folks are doing. And essentially, like you said, all of us need somebody to talk to. You know, and being able to kind of unload that is important.
The training is very much focused on our ability to empathize and create this safe space. The essence, regardless of all the training, and you're quite right, there's very comprehensive training, it takes 6 months. The essence of all of that is being able to communicate your humanity in one human being talking to another. And you must never get away from that. They must never feel that we're working down some sort of checklist, in that regard, they're talking to someone that's pre-programmed in any particular way. This is very much listening to what is coming down the phone and responding in the correct way. As I say, to make people understand that they're totally supported. When I'm taking a call, that is my only focus. What is coming down that phone. There is no other distraction. They have my 100% focus and concentration. And that's very important for them to be made to feel that they are special for that period of time, that they're really listened to. Whereas I've said before, maybe that's not something that they've been exposed to in the rest of their daily lives.
I absolutely agree. And one of the things I want to hit on with you for those who are listening that maybe have somebody that they are concerned about, or they're worried about, or they know they have things going on. I think all of us have somebody that, you know, we have people that are hurting. You had said something that really hit me hard, was you have between 30 seconds and 1 minute where that person feels that they're being heard, they're not being judged because of your tone, because of your willingness. And it's not about anybody being a therapist to anyone, meaning in terms of the people we care about, but our tone and our body language are important. And so you had said, like, where sometimes it gets too heavy, and it's, you know what, we're going to encourage you and recommend for you to go to a mental health professional. So to that person who's listening now, that it's not about being their therapist, but every one of us, I think we need to do a better job of learning how to listen and learning how to be approachable, where if we need to pass that baton, there's so many hurting people out there that I do think that can clam up and will clam up and will shut down if they don't feel like they can be heard to some degree. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think in general terms, people are too quick to rush to potential solutions, so that you want to fix people. You want to offer them, let me tell you what I did in your situation. I know how you feel. Well, no, you don't. You don't know how you feel, because you're unique in terms of, you may have been through the same set of circumstances, but you may react in a totally different way. So the art, if we have one, is to listen without offering those sort of solutions or results or, do as I have done, because that will make you feel better. It is just having the ability to let people unload. Because there aren't any magic wands. At the end of the day, people have to fix themselves. It's just a matter of at that particular moment allowing them to know that they're supported, and that there is not going to be any intervention. But in doing so, just allowing them to talk through. We use this analogy of a washing machine. And putting all the washing in, and it's going round and round until it dry, which is really like people's thoughts and fears and difficulties and apprehensions. And what we do is we take the washing out of the washing machine with them, and we lay them out in piles. And it begins to give people a slightly better insight in this jumble that's in their head that they're finding so difficult to sort out and cope with.
I like that analogy. Because I think it also allows them, no matter how big the load of laundry is, you feel like it's bigger than it really is when it's not set out and it's not organized to some extent of organization, where it can just, why even try when the load of laundry is this big. So throwing this out to you, and as I throw this, I gave you no questions ahead of time to give you preparation. What has been your biggest lesson in your time being a listener for you that you've gained from your experience through?
I think
Samaritans?
I think the biggest insight for me is the crisis in lack of self-esteem. How a lot of people, most people, in some ways that ring us, whether it is in their early life or what's happened to them through relationships, circumstances, started off not feeling good enough for whatever reason. And then things have happened in their lives that have reinforced the fact that they're not good enough, that there's something wrong with them, that they're not like other people, that they're failed. And yes, that's been something that has been an experience. The other thing that I learned about people who have suicidal thoughts and that act, which is so difficult to understand by anyone who could possibly contemplate that, is that people in those circumstances don't really want to die. They just want the pain to stop. And the only solution they can think of to get the pain to stop that is in their head, and the difficulty about having it in your head is you can't escape it, because it's always there. There's no shut-off point. So that desperation is, I just need this to stop, and I need this to stop now. And it's not really about thinking, well, I'm going to die, because sometimes we will say to people, do you want to die for now or forever? And it stops them in their tracks, because they haven't really contemplated that this is permanent. That this is just really about, I have this pain, I can't escape this pain, I want it to stop. And that's the solution. It's a bit like an understanding of why people self-harm. It's not because they want to cut themselves or braise themselves or burn themselves with cigarettes. It's they want to let the pain out. And that is the way that they have found that actually works for them. Inexplicable to most of us, but that is the explanation that they give. So this ability to release pain is really at the center of some of these inexplicable actions to people that have never faced that sort of dilemma. We talk about 3 stages of people if there's no intervention. Stress, which is just generally caused by everything that's going on around you and your reactions to it. Distress, when that moves up into a slightly different area, when you become a little bit more overwhelmed by what's happening to you. And then despair. And despair is when you can't see any hope. You look at your life and say, well, nothing's going to change. Tomorrow's going to be the same as today. The circumstances that I'm caught in are never going to be any different. And that's where things become very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of lessons.
It's a lot of lessons. I'm like, we could do four more podcasts on this, all these different offshoots, but they're powerful lessons, you know, that we're in a crisis right now, and kind of like wrapping all these different things you said, I'm thinking about and processing them. It's a lot. But I think people being able to feel like they've been heard, I think does help.
Yep.
Kind of defining what hurt is, and being sensitive when it comes to grief, being sensitive when it comes to mental illness, because I think all of us at times are quick to say something where we haven't thought before we said it, or make judgment that does more harm than we can ever imagine.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's like, I'm not going to tell you that, wow, what you just said, like you had said when your son passed away, certain things that, why would you ever say that to someone? But it's usually because they're uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And they don't know what to say, and where it's like, wow, that's stuck in my heart, and holy cow. But I think with time, and the more you dialogue, and the more that you folks are a presence within Cyprus and the UK and all these different organizations, that I believe we're in a battle. You know, you're on the front lines fighting for what's good and what's right, but it's tiring.
Sure.
So asking you this, how do you recharge? How do you, when you leave here and you've heard a whole lot, how do you kind of keep a balance? How do you clear your own head out as a helper, as a listener?
Yeah, this is going to sound a bit simplistic, but it works for me. When I shut the door on the listening room, doesn't matter how involved or difficult the call's been, that's it. I don't take it out of this centre. I have been there for people, maybe sometimes for 2 hours or more on difficult calls, and I've been there for them 100%. But I know, because it's non-interventionist, that what I'm doing is being there for them during that particular time. I can't wave magic wands. I don't even know who they are or where they are. So when I come out of here, that's it. No, I don't take it out.
Okay. Good on you. Did that take some discipline or training from the beginning for you personally, or you were able to just walk out and it's not with me?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be less than human if you didn't say, maybe I should have said this, or should I have said that, or should I ask more questions? You know, could I have done a better job? There's that element, but no, I don't. I don't take it out of here. That's never been an issue for me, and I've dealt with people, not so much here, but certainly in the UK, who were sitting there with the tablets making a decision on whether to do it or not. And you never know what happens. So unusually, there's not a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the phone will go down for whatever reason. Did something happen? Did they change their minds? You just don't know.
Yeah.
So you just accept that you were there for them when they needed you, and you did what you're here to do. But no, personally, I don't take it out. Okay.
Which is healthy.
Well,
yeah. I mean, it's you know, I think it's a challenge, but what I dug what you had said a bit ago, where it was, you know, you gave your 100%, your insight, your compassion, your ear, but at some point, as with any of us as human beings, you don't have a magic wand. There's nobody that can change us but us. That's and right. So it's now up to that. And, you know, having been in the counseling field for a number of years, there's times, I think, if you don't look at it in a healthy way, you want to bash your head against the wall where you're like, just do this, but you can't make anybody, whether it's mental health, mental illness, addiction, life choices, whatever, personal and professionally, the ball's in their court.
Absolutely.
And so it's allowing people to take some ownership. Like, listen, I can't, you know, you can't make anybody do anything that they aren't willing or at that point to do.
Nope.
So it kind of goes, it's a two-way street here. And I think sometimes it can become easy for somebody who's not in a good place, and correct me if you think I'm wrong here, where it's playing the victim or saying, I can't, because I don't know, I'm trying to put the right words here together, where it's them not taking ownership and them not saying, you know, and it's not a self-esteem thing. It's a willingness to take the baton and wanting somebody else to do it for them. If that makes sense. And you know, that's not how life works, unfortunately.
Yes, interestingly, there's an interesting phrase from a psychiatrist in the book I read. It's called emotionally focused coping. And basically he says, there's faced with any crisis, there's only two ways you can go. There's no other options. Either you solve the problem and move on, or you'll become mentally ill, which I think is a very interesting, and it's very stark. But you know, coping is a bit like a muscle. The more you have to do it, the better it gets, and you do have to learn to cope because life's tough.
Yeah, life can be tough.
You know, and that's the reality. And you have to set yourself up for how you're going to react in those sort of situations. And I guess your work with young people is important in terms of allowing them to understand that, that it isn't a bed of roses, that it's not always going to be successful, that things will just happen to you, and how are you going to react and cope with that?
And empowering them to
do
you
that.
know, and you had said something where it was, you know, saying, I know how you feel. And I remember as a counselor, that's one thing I was hell-bent on never saying, because it makes me want to, like, you know, I don't mean this literally, but figure, like, wants to just punch somebody in the face. Like, you don't know how I'm feeling. And it gets, especially a young person, angry. You have no idea what I've been through, but saying, you know what, you, with the right coping skills and gaining that confidence and realizing there's no other you on the planet but you, you can be okay.
Yes.
With support, with you, and taking ownership. But it does, whether you're 16 or 60, it's you being able to kind of taking that step. And this is where all these things kind of overlap big time, because you can, and there's no one else that can do it but you. So I do want to say to you, thank you, John, so much for your time. Thank you for your bravery, for your heart, your kindness. I know later, wait, oh my gosh, we're almost in November. Not yet. I'm jumping the gun. Okay. Towards the end of November, there's a fundraiser that's coming up here in Paphos. But for those who are listening that aren't from Cyprus or don't have connections to Cyprus, if they wanted to donate to an amazing cause, I know there's a PayPal connection. They were to hop on CyprusSamaritans.org. I'd encourage you to do so. There's a PayPal account. If we talk about, there's so many times in life, it's like, gosh, I want to make a difference. And I don't have the time to be a listener, you know, meaning behind it, manning a phone, or I don't have time to, you know, be hitting the streets and handing out sandwiches. I get that. But there's always time to click a button if you have the means to do so, whether it's, you know, it's €5, it's $25 US, whatever the heck it is, you know, fill in the conversion here, that you literally, when I tell you, having the ability to be here the past few weeks, these guys are rocking out, saving lives, encouraging, and spreading kindness. And that is what it's all about, my friends. So if you get a chance, hop on their website, just even to check out what they're doing and send them some encouragement, because kindness and encouragement go so far. Don't forget to hop on goodnesschick.com. I'm always going to throw that one out there. Dig Goodness Chick. And continuing being empathetic, spreading kindness, and peace, love, and goodness, my friends. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.